Hey guys, Micah from blackbearcustomkydex. I have a video for you today on a very interesting knife. This is the RMJ tactical Seax, like Viking Seax. Very interesting knife. It's very heavy and well, it's not super heavy, but you know, it's got some heft to it, and it's a very unique shape and blade profile. So this is Michael's, and he sent it to me and asked me to make him a sheath that he could use with his Beach and Tactical 3-point chest harness that he bought for me a few weeks ago. And so he's actually the first customer to buy that as an individual unit, and he was putting it on all these other sheaths that he's got. But this one he couldn't, the factory sheath for his RMJ Seax, he couldn't because it obviously has no eyelets. So there's nothing we could do there. Apart from like sewing something onto the pre-existing sheath, but this is a really nice piece of leather work, so he didn't want to do that. So what he was thinking though is that he really likes leather, so he wanted me to build him a Leather-Over-Kydex sheath with some stitching in it, and there is, I think it's on some RMJ stuff, there's a similar kind of doubled over, I don't know if I want to call them soft loops, because they are the same material. It's rubber coated nylon, but this is just from a spool of webbing rather than, you know, one finite snap. So I actually custom cut these. You can see I've branded BBCK on them and set the snaps and receiver and all that. So anyway, so he had sent me a picture of something similar on another RMJ factory setup, asked if I could do that for this. So that's what we're looking at here, and then obviously eyelets all around for a lot of different options for chest carry. So let's take a look at this. I used the thickest Kydex available. This is 0.125 inch thick Kydex. It is extremely rugged. It is very durable, and I've used it now a couple times on some other projects. Usually I use it for making mounting plates and things like that need to be very stiff. So I hadn't crossed my mind that I should try making sheaths out of it. But you know what? It actually works really nicely, particularly on larger blades. So that's what we're looking at here. Really nice, thick sheath. It's already for a knife that's got some heft to it, so I'm not worried too much about the weight. Sorry, my phone's going off. I'm just gonna silence that. So yeah, this thing is pretty awesome. And then on the front here, what you're looking at, this logo plate. This is symmetrical to the back side of the sheath. If you were to take off these loops, you would see a similar contour, and you can see that you've got options. There are four, I'll show you on this side, there are 4 holes that go directly into the sheath. I actually put something on the sides of the sheath before I pressed it so that there would be that outcrop around it that I could drill into and have hardware embedded so that it wouldn't touch the blade as you put your knife in and out of the sheath. So this plate is really just there as a placeholder in case you ever decide that you want to switch sides and put the snap loops on this side. So you do have a lot of ambidexterity there. You can also actually unscrew, if you open up the snap, you can see a little Phillips head screw in there. If you unscrew that, you can adjust the webbing on here to a bunch of different lengths. So ultimately, if you really need to, you could jack the height of this up quite a bit, or you can lower it on your body. I think you can get the loops to come up a full 1.5 inches from its current position. It might even be closer to 2 inches or 3 inches. Just kind of looking at it now. Yeah, you could definitely, basically this whole loop down here is just slack that you could let out and have it hang even lower if you want. So you got that option. The other thing that you can do with this, because these loops are removable, and because you have the hardware that you need to make a soft loop, essentially, you could have a large soft loop position anywhere on this sheath and carry in a number of different positions with the soft loops. OWB, IWB. This would be a hard one to go IWB just because of size, but yeah, you have a lot of options with this. And then of course the chest harness was ultimately the goal with this thing, so he'll be using that and making a chest harness out of it. So let's check this out. Prepping this knife to be formed in a Kydex sheath, you have a couple of options. Option number one, probably the most obvious option, is basically have the spine of the sheath cut from here to here. So you could have, you know, the sheath be as low profile as possible. It would come straight out here, or maybe, you know, maybe go up, I don't know. It would come, you could come straight across that spine and then have the lowest profile border all the way around the rest of it. I don't do open spine sheaths. I really despise them. It's not, I'm not telling you that they're a bad thing. What I am telling you is that irrefutably they are flimsy. They just are. You cannot make them in such a way that they aren't flimsy, because they have nothing whatsoever from whatever the point is that you cut it all the way to the opening of the sheath. They have nothing keeping these two layers up here rigid. Whereas if they actually contour back together, brace one another, and have eyelets in them or hardware of some kind holding them together, they're going to be very rigid. So making a full taco or a full pancake, this is a pancake design, so full taco or a full pancake design is, it just is better. Well, all right, it's stronger. There we go. So can't argue with that. It might not be better. That's up to you. It's up to the end user. But it definitely is stronger. So I opt to go with the stronger designs, even if they are a little bit bigger. And actually, if you look at this thing, I know it looks pretty wide up here. You know, this is wide, but if you're looking at the widest point of the knife, the sheath has to clear that. It has to be as wide as the widest point of the knife for the knife to draw out smoothly. And you can see that it really isn't unnecessarily large. So it is as small as it can be for the profile of the knife. That said, so if you're looking at it like this, the knife up against the sheath, roughly where it would sit inside the sheath, what do you do up here with this whole space, this triangle above the blade? What I did was I cut a couple of pieces of Kydex. I'd figured out the width of the spine. And by figured out, I mean I measured it. And then I used what I know about the thicknesses of Kydex to deduce that there were no two layers of Kydex that would actually match that thickness perfectly. However, two different thicknesses added together equals the exact thickness of the spine of the knife. I thought that was actually pretty cool. So what we've got here is just a little Kydex triangle that I taped to the blade. And you can see that kind of fills out the thickness. It kind of makes the whole thing look like it should draw straight out like that, as if this ramp didn't exist. So I just did that, and then I blocked out the bottom here for a little bit of retention, and it worked out really nicely. So let's check out the fit on this thing. You got that beautiful fade dyed logo plate on the front. The fit, huge click. You do have to push just a little bit. It comes out easier than it goes in. So if you give it just a little extra push on its way in, it's really, really nice. The draw is super buttery. One thing I'll say is, as you go to draw it, you think it's going to be totally ballistic, but it always hangs up. There's one little spot where if you allow the top corner of this blade to stay high in the sheath, it's going to catch like that. And it's not a big deal. It seems very smooth, and it's a very brief moment. But if you keep that low, it is an extremely comfortable and smooth draw. Even passing through the quote tight spot, it's pretty easy to use. So anyway, that's what we got. So he had asked for black leather, black stitching. I used black Kydex. I left the edges natural color, so I dyed the Kydex, and then when I beveled the edges, which you need to do to get a good finish on leather edges, you bevel the edge, and it exposes some of the natural color of the leather again, unless you've dyed it all the way through, which I typically do not, because I like a little contrast. I think that looks really nice, having that natural border between the leather and the Kydex. Nice, really nice look. And then the plate here, so I'm just starting to kind of get into this, but there are a lot of complex ways to work with leather, and one of them is to do this one. I'm finding a bunch of different names for it, but some people call it a starburst pattern. Some people say it's a starburst faded pattern, fade dyeing. I can't remember what the other name I'd seen was, but basically where you have a transitional color fade, so it's lighter in the middle and it gets darker as you go out. So I did have the border of this piece that I was working with totally black, so it was going to transition perfectly, but I mismeasured the overall height and width, so the black unfortunately was kind of chopped off, but you do get that darker outer ring coming from the black and then into that center where it lightens up. I thought that was a nice little contrast piece for this. So that piece in the center is a thin layer of Kydex. That's the standard thickness that most factory sheaths would come in, 0.080, and then with a layer of leather adhered to it there. So, all right, so in the package, obviously you're going to get your RMJ Seax with this new leather sheath, or Leather-Over-Kydex sheath. I guess we'll just call this adjustable snap loops for carry method. This is a custom method I'd never heard of or seen this specifically until Michael reached out and sent me a picture of another RMJ factory sheath that had something like that. So I guess I'm offering it, but I'm not I don't know what it's called, so I'm not going to name it just yet. Alright, so the two loops are connected to the sheath, and where they are connected, you are missing the two finish washers and oval head screws. So these top two on the back side are actually in my hand right now, and you have to take those out to put the soft loops on. So I'm going to send you finish washer, a 1/8 inch thick neoprene washer, and then the two oval head screws that you need to cinch those down. So I already told Michael, I'll tell you guys too, if you have something like this, you do need to be very careful. If you take the screws out, and there are a lot of different applications, you can put one of your mounting points here for your harness, or if you're switching sides, obviously you got to take this whole plate off and swap it to the other side. Just be careful that when you back the screw out, you're not putting pressure downward on it, too much pressure, because that will cause the female screw, which is embedded, to pop out and land inside the sheath. If that happens, it's going to be very difficult to get that to come back up through the Kydex and leather. It's a tough one when you have a pancake style sheath and an integrated outcrop of some kind built into the sheath. That's a really tough one. So yeah, just be careful with that. Same thing when you're putting new hardware in. Just, I would start it with zero pressure, threading it by hand until you feel that it takes, and then you can use a drill to screw it down. So, all right, that's what you're getting, my friend. Guys, if you like this sheath, if you like this knife, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you like the channel, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of the RMJ Seax. Let me know what you think of the snap loops, the Leather-Over-Kydex, the stitching along the edge. I really love doing stitching on Kydex. I think it looks awesome. And then this, we'll call it a starburst fade leather pattern. So, all right, guys, like, share, comment, subscribe, and stick around for the next one. God bless.